Hey guys, it is Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and it's a very special one because it is the 5090 Founders Edition review. It is the one that we've all been hyping about. It is been getting very positive hype, but also a lot of negative hype as well because of the introduction of multi-frame gen, and there are many views that you can take on that, and we will discuss them in this video today. Now, there are a lot of specs around, and everyone is going to sit and dissect them and talk to you about this and talk to you about that. And I'm going to splash some stuff up so that you can have a look. But at the end of the day, the review that I want to give you today is a bit like talking to a mate at a pub. It is the way I like to do things. Now, rather than just chucking loads of performance numbers at you, I do want to talk to you about my experience with it, what the card's like, what we were expecting. Why are we now so hyped that it's not massive? Lots of things like that. Just like if you were sat at a pub, you'd be chatting with your mate about it. And that's kind of one of the places where I do want to start is the size. Because I think Nvidia have done a masterstroke in marketing on this one, because all of the leaks, which were pretty much, let's face facts, they would have been controlled by Nvidia. All of the leaks were this big chunky quad slot card. People online were saying it's too big, things are getting out of hand. All the memes were basically just huge like air conditioners outside people's house with 5090s on them. And we were used to the big chunky triple slot card anyway. So a 4-slot card for the newer, more power hungry card, it kind of made sense. But like I said, I'm pretty sure that it was Nvidia controlling the narrative. They wanted us to be hating on it, I think, because then when the dual slot card comes out, all of a sudden it goes from complete one end of the scale to the other end of the scale. And rather than, let's face facts, if it had just come out in dual slot, we would have just said that's the way it should have been all along. And that is the way it should have been all along. But we've gone from this quad slot lunacy to a dual slot normal sized graphics card, and everyone lose their minds about it. But in the grand scheme of things, the engineering that went into that card is second to none. The engineering for the metal, the way it's all put together is amazing. The Founders Edition have always been amazing. But I've actually held the PCB in my hand. It is really that small. So what we've got is the main PCB, and there is componentry on both sides, but then you have a little daughter board where the video slots are with a ribbon cable, and then you also have one for the actual PCI Express connector on the bottom on a little ribbon cable as well. And that means that air can blow through both sides of the card now. Now this is going to make a few things interesting long term. First and foremost, straight off the bat, in my head, I'm worrying about water blocks. Water cooling these, there's going to be a lot less. You're going to be able to see through them. Like, it's going to be crazy for water block manufacturers. We could start to see loads more acrylic being used, light being able to be passed down the middle. Like, the possibilities of where this could go is crazy. But the other side of it is, in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, when the Founders Edition come out and they were blowing air through the end of the card, they set a trend. And now everyone does it. Like, literally everyone designs a card, and now I want to actually pick one up and I can't get one to hand really easily, but they've all got the pass-through at the end now. So is this going to become a new standard? Is a mini PCB with dual air passing through, is that going to be something that all of the vendors and AIBs like MSI and Asus and Zotac, is that where this design is now going to lead us? This is going to become our new standard. The other side of it is, if you think outside the box that little bit more, are we now going to have cooling changes or case changes or whatever? Are we going to see new things for vertical graphics cards? Because if none of the heat is going out the back and it's all getting directed straight at the motherboard, are we going to need more airflow now to be able to move the air down the back if we've got a vertical graphics card? So are we going to need lots more heat this way, because all of the heat from the GPU is now going to be going straight towards the motherboard. It also could become more troublesome for vertical mount cards, because if you've got your riser cable tight up around the back, then there's not going to be a lot of breathing room there either. So it is going to become one of those ones where we might find case manufacturers make changes so that the riser or the card is further away from the motherboard so that there's better airflow. And these are just the things that are in my head just really early on. So there's a couple of things for you to think about, but in the grand scheme of things, it is an absolute engineering marvel. And straight away off the bat, that's the thing that I'm going to completely take away from this. That is my highlight, is what they've done beyond the performance, but just how they built the card and how they went about it is amazing. And I'm now going to take you over and we're going to talk about temperatures and power usage, so that then we can come back and talk more about the design again. So we'll try a different angle for the power and temperatures, because I can show you it actually live for a change, but also means I'm going to be able to show you how I did it, but then also how the fans run, because when you see the power graph, you'll see it as a complete system draw, but I can show you. So we're 750 watts at the moment, but I've seen that over 800. We can see board power draw is 600 watts, 16 pin power is 594. That's a maximum. But the things to kind of keep an eye on are GPU temperatures. Up here we can see fan speeds. But what I can do is directly rip the system open and move the microphone in. Now that's 50% fan speeds, and if I'm honest, the rest of the fans in the rig are static at 1400 RPM, and it's really, really not loud. If I stop the system, now we can watch all of the temps and everything and the fan speeds and everything come down, and like some of the other fans in the rig are making more noise than the actual graphics card itself. You can hear that one spin up now. So that's what that kickoff was. It's great that this is magnetic, by the way, but honestly, I know you can hear me in the background, but noise is not a problem with this card. So I'll bring up the power and the temperature graph, because it does use a lot of power. It has used way more power than I was expecting, if I'm honest, but they have added in, there's a lot more going on underneath the hood. It's not just an architectural change, there's loads more under the hood, and technically that's probably where the extra power usage has come from. So we haven't got any power savings as such, because they've added, like I said, they've added more under the hood, and that's why we're using a lot more power. I've never seen a graphics card spike sit there. Now, you can see that my full system was, in the video, you can see it was 750 watts, but it was over 800 a lot. We can also see that we are actually pulling 600 watts through the 16 pin as well, and I never got my 4090 to do that unless I had overclocked it, and then I was like full speed on the fans all the time. Like I actually had to punish it to be able to get it anywhere close. So for us to be able to see that was a bit of an eye-opener. But the reason why I came back to this is to basically say it is using more power. It is, but it's still quiet. And it's still quiet, and it's still dual slot. So that is another reason why the card itself is an engineering marvel, because they've managed to shrink it. They've kept it quiet. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, it's running at 80 degrees. That is just its temperature target. And then once it's at 80 degrees, if it doesn't get there, it will overclock itself. It will always sit there. It will slow the fans down. That's just where the card wants to be. if it gets too hot in the room, it'll underclock itself a little bit. It'll spin the fans up a little bit, but it always kind of wants to be around the 80 degrees mark. With that as well, it's very quiet, and that was a bit of an eye-opener, because a lot of people contacted me, I say a lot of people, some people contacted me directly to say, is the dual slot going to mean that it's now really loud, or coil whine and all of that sort of stuff? And I've had no issues with that whatsoever, and that in itself again was a really big eye-opener for me. Now moving on to performance, there's only, do you know what, I'm going to start with the one that it didn't like absolutely best at the top of the graph on, and it will please some of the AMD people out there, because there is still a game that the 7900 XTX is best in, but it is an AMD title, so it's there's your graph. You know, we're going to start off with that, and then we're going to move on to everything else, because moving on to everything else, it's pretty much 4090 versus 5090 and how big are the gains, and they are big. There's a lot in the grand scheme of things. The 5090, it doesn't matter whether it's rasterized, it doesn't matter whether it's DLSS. But one of the things I will say now is, like, early on when DLSS first come out, I said straight from the get-go, if they get this right, this is going to be a complete and utter game changer. And they have got it right. Like, I don't see the point in having an Nvidia card now and not enabling DLSS at all. I don't put it in any of the performance modes or anything like that. Literally, for me, it's about balanced or quality, and you just enable it because it does make a big difference. I don't understand why you wouldn't. And yes, I know it's all software based, but we'll talk more about sort of like software differences in the conclusion, because I know a lot of you are not a fan of multi-frame gen or frame gen and everything like that, but we will get there. So bear with me, there is a lot for us to cover. But DLSS, even if you don't like frame gen, fine, don't turn it on. DLSS, I don't understand why you wouldn't, because it is just better now. It's making the picture better. We're getting, you've got the latency technology now to make the latency faster, better. It is just, they are making waves. And Intel have got their version of it. AMD are constantly working and trying to adapt their version of it. It is just the way that the market is going to go now. Are we finding the limits of silicon and now we've got to start focusing more on software? Maybe, yeah, who knows, until someone comes up with something crazy underneath the hood on any of the cards. But I was going to go off on a huge tangent about Intel and ray tracing then, but anyway, we'll try and stay on point. So DLSS I love, and I don't understand why you wouldn't turn it on, which is one of the reasons why I always test without, because then I can test all of the cards without it. And then when you do turn it on, there's always a boost, and it is annoying, but we do test with balanced anyway. So performance-wise, there was some huge gains in the grand scheme of things, and you didn't necessarily need a title that supported MFG or multi-frame gen to have been able to have seen it. Now with multi-frame gen, there were a couple of, well, I chose 3 in the end. I ended up getting a new string to be able to test Cyberpunk with DLSS 4. Then there was Alan Wake, and then there was the new Star Wars, which we went through. And in the, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, even forgetting MFG, there was a decent boost with DLSS over the 4090, to the point where some of them you kind of needed, the 4090 kind of needed frame gen enabled to be able to keep up with the 5090 just with DLSS enabled. So there's a lot there. The one thing I will say is when you look in the graphs, if you see DLAA, that doesn't have ray tracing enabled for that result, so that's why it looks higher. But with the other ones with ray tracing, that's DLSS enabled, ray tracing enabled, and there's some eye-opening numbers there when you look how low down. And I obviously didn't get a great deal of time, but I did do the 4090 and the 4080 with the same driver and everything as well. in the game, and you could just, even Cyberpunk, how low the numbers go in Cyberpunk is kind of nuts, because obviously it's path traced and you've got all the crazy, like absolutely nut stuff turned on. I'm going to be honest though, like with the path tracing, I didn't really see the point in turning it all on, so it was kind of mental, if that makes any sense. I'm all for DLSS, and you can do so many refinements now with DLSS to make the picture quality better, and it's just the new transformer mode that you can use, like that is a huge difference. It is beautiful. I could make a whole video just on comparison shots and stuff like that, and I don't want to bore you any more than I'm going to be doing with the fact of with all my waffle anyway, but it is beautiful. They have taken a huge leap forward with DLSS 4 and what is available, and I actually think a lot of you are going to enjoy tweaking and playing around with it almost as much as you are playing the games. So that is wondrous. Multi-frame gen, pretty much I tested the 2, the 3 and the 4. The 4, it does appear that there is a 240 hertz target for that, because all of those 3 games do 240 comfortably with MFG times 4 enabled. One of the things I will say though is with MFG there is no blurriness. The picture quality does not diminish. It is like butter, and I think I would genuinely say give it a go. Don't necessarily just go, oh no, I'm not doing it. And like it's the adenoids people that are going to be going crazy about it. And that is a Clarkson line, just straight there. I've been watching too much Top Gear. But I genuinely would say give it a go. Would I turn it on? It's kind of one of those ones where if it's not causing any problems, why wouldn't you? It's going to max out. If you've got yourself a beautiful monitor, and I've been testing on an OLED from MSI, and if you've got yourself a 240 hertz OLED, and let's face facts, you might well have an OLED if you've just, or you're just about to, buy a £2,000 or $2,000 GPU, I don't see why you wouldn't. Do you need to? That is going to be completely up to you. It's kind of like having your car and you've got a supercharger on it and then not turning it on, or having nitrous and then not having it on all the time. Maybe the nitrous one's not the best kind of analogy because you don't ever run your gas on all the time anyway, but definitely having a supercharger and then not having it on. Do you need the power all the time? No, but if you want to play Cyberpunk and you literally want to turn everything up to the hilt, and then you want to see what it's going to look like at 240 hertz, maxing your monitor out with all your V-Sync and stuff, G-Sync, sorry, then that's the way to do it. And is that going to be the new standard? Is we are running out of what we can do with silicon as it stands at the moment, and software is going to be the new way forward. So lots for us to talk about. Now, my only gripe with the card in the grand scheme of things is the price. And I think if they'd have introduced this at the same price as the 4090, at $14.99, and they did that, and it was like a direct replacement for the 4090, bosh, this would be a no-brainer. But the problem does lie with that $500, which will probably be 500 GBP price increase. That's a 25% hike. Now, I do understand that cardboard costs just a fortune now, so even silly stuff like that costs money. Everything in the world now costs more. Like, inflation is ridiculous. So we do have to kind of consider that, but let's just go on the, we want everything to be roses and rainbows. £500. Is the performance without the software differences, is the performance £500 worth of performance increase? I don't think it is. Does it make me like the card less? I wished it was the same, because then it would be just like, oh yeah, we've done all of this, the card's better, the card's faster, the software's better, that's it. It's a direct replacement for the 4090, so here's your 1499 card. I don't think they would have been able to have made them fast enough. Maybe the 5080, same sort of price that they're saying is it's going to be. because, you know, there's rumours and stuff out there. But the 4090, I think it took the shine off of it that little bit more for me. That's just for me. But the performance-wise, was it worth another 500 quid? No, because it's not 25% more frames. But at the top end of the scale, obviously, it's going to narrow. But is it an amazing card? Software-wise, they've done absolutely nuts things with it. Build quality-wise, they've done absolutely crazy things with it. Rasterized performance-wise, there's a decent boost, but maybe not quite £500 worth. But the overall package, is it worth another 500 quid? I think with a card like this, you're either going to buy it or you're not. People that aren't going to buy it are probably going to be the ones that moan. There are going to be many, many of you out there that are just going to buy it just because, though, because it is the latest, it is the greatest. And we've all seen the looks on the stuff on Marketplace where people are selling their 4090s left, right and centre because people are already getting ready to buy this. Should they not be buying it? I'm definitely not going to be saying they shouldn't be buying it, no. The Founders Edition is an absolute masterstroke. I actually feel sorry for the vendors and the AIBs at how good this card is. How small it is, the performance that you get from it, like thermally, the noise that it doesn't make. It is amazing. Like this card is going to make it incredibly difficult for MSI, Asus, everybody else to bring a card to the table now that is going to be so big because it hasn't got the double pass through. Like this genuinely is going to make all of the AIB's life a nightmare. And if I'm honest, like all I want to do with this card is have a candy red one or a white one or something, so it's a little bit more unique for me, but it is an engineering masterstroke. And the only thing that you guys are probably going to argue about is multi-frame gen. And if that's the only thing that we're going to be arguing about, it's a bit of a no-brainer really, isn't it? I think they've absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I'm really excited now to see how the lower end cards are going to fit in with the stack. And I think the other side of it really is like, this is amazing, really expensive. But we now all want to see how the 70 and the 80 perform in comparison to this one. So the 5090 and the 4090 now. So the 4090 is still relevant, but we've got way more testing to do and way more stuff for us to absorb and get excited about. And you know what? I'm all up for the late nights. I'm all up for the hard work because this is exciting hardware again. And it feels like we've waited for this for such a long time. So perfect one, Nvidia. I'm going to give you the Innovation Award for the design and the way the card was built. The dual fan, the tiny PCB Innovation Award for that. And I'm going to let you guys at home tell me underneath in the comments what you think about the rasterized performance and the MFG. And if you did get to the end, then you get a cherry bakewell. So that needs to go in the comments as well. But thank you if you did tune in right the way to the end. I know I waffle a lot, but it's like I said, it's like mates in a pub. We sit down, we have a chat. And it's not a lecture. It is just us having a discussion about Nvidia's latest and greatest graphics card. And wow, what a graphics card the 5090 is. Tiny Tom Logan out. Ding! Love you, sis.